Welcome to For the Record, which is a conversation series where we talk to music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. Um, it's great to have you here, Jack.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to talk about
Abs-
something I love so much.
Good. I'm happy you feel that way. I'm excited to chat with you. Before we sign on, before we hit the record button, we were talking about your trip to India and some of the Indian music that you had come to enjoy, and I want to work toward that. But first, I would love to hear more about you, your story, where you're from and when your relationship with music started.
Yeah, thanks so much. So, first and foremost, I'll say my relationship with music has been my entire life. I really feel that it's true. We start our life with a heartbeat, right? That's already rhythm. Like we're
That's true.
rhythm-induced creatures. So I feel like
Love that.
my relationship started with my heartbeat.
Hmm.
That's truly how I've tried to live in my years as I've understood this truth. So I actually have always had a little bit of music. My parents are big music fans, but I can't do anything just like simply. So like my my older cousins had music lessons. They had violin lessons, and it was like part of the curriculum for school that they were going to that I was like eventually going to go to as well. Um, but I didn't wanna wait. I was like, "I'm gonna be really good, and I'm gonna sit in on your lessons, and I'm gonna, like, learn by myself, and you're gonna, like, trust me eventually to let me hold this violin, this expensive instrument." And I did, and I was able to, like, learn, and I really, really liked it, and I moved from violin to viola when it was, like, a year into my studies because I was super, like, engaged with getting, um like, maybe I've always just enjoyed the niches because I always play, like, a weird instrument. I play viola, I play tenor sax, like, I play
Cool.
bassoon, like, I'm not I'm not playing these normal instruments, right?
Yeah, those are
So
cool instruments.
yeah, yeah, I'm always looking for, like, the weird note in the chord to play.
Those are the most interesting notes.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I'm always looking for those types of notes. But so I played viola for like 10 years and I was like in the classical circuit. I went on to like study classical music. I kind of got like bitten by the jazz bug a little bit
Hmm.
in high school. I I was I wanted to take as many music classes as I could in high school, and they had jazz band open, and I was like, "Well, I don't really play any jazz instruments necessarily. I play flute as well, so I was like, I could do jazz flute, things like that." And they're like, "Since you have flute down, like, just pick up saxophone."
Mm.
Like, just pick up saxophone is,
Yeah,
like, something that
easy.
you can just do, right?
Yeah.
But at that age in high school, it's sort of like it is. And I
Mm.
did, and I played second tenor saxophone. I wanna specify that because, again, I'm really looking for those juicier, meatier, weirder notes.
Hmm.
And I think
Totally.
the tenor range has always been something that, like, really, like, appeals to me, sort of like, I'm a sort of mezzo soprano now. I also studied opera. Like, I went from being, like, a high coloratura soprano to, like, sort of, like, more relaxed mezzo
Mm.
in my later years.
Fair.
So, yeah, I just have always wanted a more laid back approach to, like, some of the high strung out, like, very stressful, um, auditions and, like, competitiveness with, like, some of these other instruments that I experienced early on.
Totally.
So
Cool. I love that. Can you talk about the jazz bug a little bit more? I'm curious how, I mean, it's an easy bug to catch, of course.
yeah, of
I'm cu
course, of
I'm
course.
curious to
Well,
hear, like, what, drew you into that universe?
so interesting, right? Because jazz is so encompassing, and, like, I'm a big record collector too, like a
Mhm.
huge, huge record collecting nerd. I inherited my first collection when I was in, I wanna say, like, 4th or 5th grade. My uncle had
Wow,
passed
cool.
away, and I was the only
Oh,
one that
sorry.
was like it's okay, no, he passed away, but I was the only one interested in these records. No one else
Wow.
was interested in these records. I was, like, the one that was like, put on another record. Like, this is my introduction to, like, Brazilian jazz,
Mm.
like mid-century Brazilian jazz, like this golden era of, like, when this stuff came in to the Americas and like infiltrated that sort of like sound that, Gil Gilberto and Astrud Gilberto and all of those wonderful people. Um, but like, so I had this in me, and during high school, before I was in jazz band, like my freshman year, I met my current record collecting partner, and he was really interested in traditional jazz, and I also had 78s in this collection. And I
Mm.
was like, wow, you have 78s, I have 78s. That's not even like a thing that 13-year-olds normally have.
True.
So we became instant friends, and instantly we started to like collect records, and then I became really obsessed with early Decca recordings of Ella Fitzgerald. So that was like my first really like big like jazz is amazing and scatting is like the ultimate. Like, and like I love Cab Calloway and Ella Fitzgerald, and like this is it. I love traditional jazz. But it was like
Mhm.
it like sort of went on from there. Like I feel like I evolved alongside jazz like in my youth, where I was like bebop, everyone's into bebop now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just like speed ran all of jazz history in high school,
Yeah.
but starting literally with its like traditional roots and like ragtime and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So what was the first record you actually purchased yourself that you didn't inherit, I
Mm.
guess?
Not like I think I don't remember like the first record, but I know the first CD I purchased, which was
Ah,
Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt.
nice. Good record.
Well, yeah, it's a good record. It was like a good first purchase record, but like I had inherited so many records, and then like my friend was like getting records, and then we were trading like on like internet forums and stuff like that, like early internet forums and like early MySpace. We were like in these
Mhm.
like like, if you've ever seen Ghost World, it was totally like that situation with me in high school. It was like me and a bunch of like post mid-age dudes just like drooling over records that I have.
Oh,
Like, yeah,
amazing.
this one's cool. It's fine, whatever. John Philip Sousa, whatever.
John Philip Sousa. Wow, cool.
Yeah, those first marches on 78. Some of them are
Yeah,
real rare.
classic. Yeah. Those old headbangers.
Yeah, those are the old headbangers. Back when you had like full-size tubas walking down streets and parades and
True.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
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 but, like,
yeah.
I would also say, like, the other component there's, like, 3 components that, like, shape my experience in music. It would be, like, playing music itself in the classical and jazz sort of, like, realm. It's, like, the record collecting, and then the other component of it specific to where I'm from in Los Angeles, like, born and raised in Los Angeles, is the radio. Like,
Mm,
Dub Lab radio has completely influenced, like and introduced me to so much new stuff where I was like, "What is this weird, crazy song? What is
mhm.
this weird, crazy, like, it's a sound even?"
Yeah.
And I sort of, like, opened up my experiences and my understanding and even my taste, thanks like, single-handedly thanks to the Dub Lab DJs and, like, early DJs and, like, waking up in the middle of the night just so I can listen to like crazy like house music in the middle of the night in the 90s. Like I think
Yeah,
I'm such a radio fan. I actually
yeah.
don't actually have like Spotify or any of the apps. I
Wow,
like strictly listen and support radio,
that's
which is
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah, but that's incredible. I
Yeah,
mean,
I just can't like I'm like $10. I was like, that's $10 every month that can go to a radio station.
oh,
No,
yeah.
like
I'm curious then if you're because I'm also a huge radio, nerd. I almost said Radiohead, but, I also like Radiohead. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I started with music as well, like really getting invested in radio. And my first job was at a radio station in Chicago. That was one of the early freeform stations, and like going back to like the old archives where they were like playing Pink Floyd, then they played some Beethoven right after that,
yes.
and then and they just did whatever the fuck they wanted, and it was incredible. And I think there are some DJs, and the magic of that, of like this curation is really important and still probably the best way to discover music. But I also, I use radio, but I also, use a tool like Spotify because that's where I capture the music, remember it.
Mhm.
I'm curious what you do, if you don't have Spotify.
If I don't have Spotify, if I capture a song that's just out of nowhere, either well, a lot of these subscribing like, a lot of these tools, like, I'm an NTS supporter as well, so I get
Mhm.
access to all of their song IDs.
Right.
Um, but honestly, like, I use a tool that no DJ really likes to admit, which is Shazam. I just Shazam it so I can remember it for later, and then I find it and buy it if I can find it and buy it.
No, I mean, that's a good it's a good way to do it. Shazam, I mean, I don't know, there should be no shame around Shazam.
No Shazam shame. Okay, okay. Yeah. I just like I make fun of it a lot as someone who like I'm like, your records came from sampled from my records." Like, like
Yeah.
honestly, it's fine. It's who cares? Like it's all the same. What I wanted to touch on your background in Chicago because there's another component that really I'm intersected with music very
Mm.
deeply, and I think it has partially to do with Chicago actually.
Hmm.
So I'm actually also, besides being a musician, I'm also a musician, collector, and aficionado, as it were. I'm also a dancer.
That's
And
cool.
particularly in Chicago, I found there to be such an eccentricity in the DJ style at house clubs. Like if I don't
Mhm.
know if you ever went to Smart Bar on a Sunday, there's
I
like all
oh
kinds
my
of
goodness.
fun. There's all kinds of fun things going on there. It's like if you're a dancer, you know where to go, and there's all these
Mhm.
like house events and house DJs that are great. And of course, like Chicago is one of the birthplaces of house. I would say
Totally.
like even more so when I lived in New York, like those clubs as well also were very highly influential in like helping me find a style. And like house music for me is literally like jazz with my body. It's like having a conversation with
Mhm.
the music with my body.
Totally.
That's like the final form of like music appreciation that I'm at right now. It's like I'm like it's not enough to make it. It's not enough to collect it. It's not enough to like support it tangibly with my money. It's also like I have to put my body into it as well. It's really like a prayer.
Totally. I mean, there are a few things more cathartic than dance. I didn't ever go to Smart Bar because it was sort of my pre-electronic music era. I was still very much into rock, which I still am, but it
I I
was
also I also lived right by Empty Bottle too, so
oh, cool.
I was all over the place.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that I definitely went to the Empty Bottle a few times. I got more into my, house music, that era, house techno, whatever. Uh, and all the permutations when I moved to New York. But I wholeheartedly agree that there are a few things that make you feel better than just going into a dark dungeon space or a brightly lit space. Doesn't have to be dark. And letting someone carry your body away, so it's pretty cool.
Point about venues though, right? Because like again, being in from LA, like there's a lot of amazing like just spaces historically that have had a lot of amazing things. And when you talk about like being in a dark void over a bright room, I think about like how many amazing artists I've been able to see at places like the Troubadour, places like the Smell, which are very small DIY places, like
Mhm.
I saw Ariel Pink there back when it was just
Cool.
like an act that was like a local like who's this local person for $5? Like, that
Yeah,
type of
yeah, yeah.
situation when there's like being from LA, it's like I've and growing up here and truly like living, breathing, and existing within the culture, the music sphere, the music world, you get to see so many cool acts. And some acts you're like, well, why didn't they make it? They were so good.
Mhm.
But
Totally.
having the ability to go to those live venues too, like that's something amazing. Like I've seen so many incredible acts in such incredibly small places where I'm sort of like spoiled where I see the giant festivals and I'm like, "Oh, but I saw them at like a tiny bar before, so it's kind of like
Mhm.
not really the same thing if I see
Not
them at
quite
a
worth it,
festival."
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I think that's one of the, real privileges of, living in a major city that that has a flourishing art scene and art history that, you can tap into whenever you want. I mean, I'm from a small town in Minnesota originally, which, had a gas station, and that's that's about it. It certainly didn't have any music venues. So it was, a gradual come up to, kind of understanding all of these, all the different niches that exist, across music, which there are, tons and tons and tons. Um, so that, exploration started in Chicago, continued in Boston, and then New York, and I think you're now in London. And LA is something, is a place that I've never really been able to tap into musically, like go to some of the more historic venues. I went to Coachella once, but I don't know if that really counts.
It
I
used
was
to be
there to write about it.
historic.
Yeah. It used to be historic. It was interesting. It was a cool cultural experience, and I was there to
Yeah.
write about it. So, um,
The last time I went there was no, actually, I was gonna say the Kendrick Lamar Damn album drop. That was
mm.
a really big year, but I went the next year too with Beyonce. That those were like 2 really big years, and I really enjoyed myself. Like, I mean, I'll say what you want about Beyonce, but like I've seen her multiple times live. She's such a good entertainer and such a good performer. I hats off to Queen.
I I have to agree. I actually flew to Sweden last year to see Beyonce. um, and it wasn't quite my like I can't quite take credit for doing that. It was my wife's, her impetus that motivated us. But I'm really glad we did. I mean, part of the reason was like it was it was actually cheaper to get 2 plane tickets and 2 floor tickets to Beyoncé if we went to Sweden than it was to get, I think, 1 individual ticket in London. It's crazy. Like, the disparity was nuts. And it was her first show back for the tours, and went, and it was like, "Damn, yeah, this is this is
She's an
unreal."
incredible performer. She's an
She
incredible
is.
performer. I know a lot of the dancers that dance with her, they're incredible too. Like she just hires the absolute top-notch talent
Yeah.
and it shows. And also like I've made costumes for her before. My another life of mine has been costume making, so I've actually made
Cool.
hats for the Formation tour.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, but let me tell you about the exacting like the needs of an exacting diva.
That that's a great album name.
Yeah, no. Maybe that'll be my first full album, yeah, The Needs of
Yeah.
an Exacting Diva. That's why it took so long.
Amazing. Um,
Yeah.
okay, cool, cool. So tell me, we, got to Dub Lab, and if my memory, serves, I think that was how you first got connected to Leaving Records, is that right?
Yes, yes. So, like, Dublab is this aggregator of all different types of genre of DJ, of communities. So it's got, like, juke bounce work that's got the juke and footwork people coming in. We've got um, people from Stone's Throw, people from Alpha Pup, people from Dome of Doom. So all these different like beat labels coming in as well. Then we've got like independent researchers doing things and like intentional listeners and like
Hmm,
noisemakers. Like everybody's coming together for Dub Lab, and everyone loves Dub Lab because it's freeform expression radio, which
yeah,
is exactly what someone radical like yourself would appreciate.
indeed, totally.
But that's kind of like how I first started to get to know Matthew David, who at the time hadn't even started leaving records. It was just sort of like Low End Theory, which again, going back to
Mhm,
like historic venues, like Low End Theory was something that I was going to weekly every Wednesday, just like taking in the vibes, taking in all the music. Like I saw some amazing acts there. Speaking of Radiohead, like Tom York played there. I miss when Prince was there. That's a
uh,
Minnesota native for you.
indeed, yeah.
Um, and then, but I mean, I got to see like Kamasi Washington and Flying Lotus and like all of these huge acts that are like massive these days, at a small club for $10.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Like week after week. It wasn't even like once in a while. It was like for a while
All the
everyone was
time.
playing pretty all the time because it was kind of like a lounge where you can kind of play your beats, kind of play your music, kind of test things out, see how they
Mhm,
are, you know. Real producers lounge. That's what it was kind of headed as. And that's kind of like where I got most familiar with Matthew's work. Was like some of the beats he was making before Leaving Records. And then when Leaving Records came about, I was like, oh, he's taking like a full, like new point of view on life,
mm,
going into this ambient, but I like it. I like this ambient music too. Again, I've never been bound by genres, and like sort of the ethos of Leaving Records has always been all genre. We have people represented from R&B, soul, ambient, like footwork, like all over the place, all sorts of different electronic and other sort of genres and genreless genres. Like if you've ever listened to Sam Gendel, you can't really put that into any sort of box.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got to know him and the crew and sort of like everyone at the label. And I think post pandemic, when things were sort of, or like during pandemic, I should say, when everything was in lockdown and everyone was sort of like gearing towards the online stuff, I sort of like raised my hand and I was like, I'll run your online communities. I love
mhm,
leaving records and I love what's going on and I love to help and I'm always volunteering for things.
hmm, cool.
Volunteering for radio stations and record labels since, birth.
Oh, amazing, yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of Leaving Records, and this, predates any of the Web3 stuff,
Mhm.
in y as a music journalist, I can't remember when I first came across Leaving Records. Maybe it was like the Julia Holter release? There was a Julia Holter release, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think perhaps that was what it was because I was a big Julia mm, I still am a Julia Holter fan. Um, and then, like, explored a bunch of the artists on the label and was like, "Damn, this is really unique," amongst labels, I love the genreless approach. And then I thought it was really cool when because I was also, kind of coming up into Web3, just getting exposed to some of the on-chain music stuff while also, kind of observing, I guess, in real time what FWB was doing, and seeing all these things happen, and then seeing Leaving Records, take this kind of early leap into this space, to really commit to not necessarily like the Web3 ethos that exists outside of music or even in some places within music, but just this this belief in community ownership and community involvement. Um, which became even clearer like when we had our first conversation, with you and some of the other leaving crew. um so I don't have a question from that. I just wanted it to say leaving records is awesome.
Thank you so much. I take only the credit for my contributions for it, but like I think the overall whenever we try to say like thank you Matthew for starting this, he's like
Yeah.
it's not me. It's
Mm.
all of us. So like I
Yeah.
want to return the same thing and say like it's not just me or it's not just like a few people. It's like everyone involved is really a part. We can't do anything alone, and I think like in the US in particular we've kind of like built this like very individualistic kind of like existence, and
Mhm.
we're sort of like kind of trying to in some small way like knock it down and say like no, we actually kind of need each other and it's beautiful and people have greater chances of success when they're traveling in packs.
Totally.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
literally. Like, that's how it started.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. So we've been taking like a sort of like slow and steady approach, but like always trying to listen to our community. I see these other folks sometimes get into the NFT space and they haven't really like done a deep dive and really spoken to their community about some of these things. And
Mhm.
I see the backlash and then they like have to take two steps back. And that's something that, like, we don't really wanna do. So we haven't been so pushy with the Web3 stuff, but the people who get it are really into it, and, like, it surprised us actually to see how many people were actually either like already keen to what's going on, or we're keen to learn more and we're interested in like down to like take down extractive practices.
Yeah. Let's do that. Um, yeah, I guess I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like, what some of the ongoing projects are, at Leaving Records, like, what's going on? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I think like some of the things that we're excited about in terms of like how we're thinking about moving things away from the current extractive practices. I mean, at least on the community side, I could say that we think about these things in terms of social media, in terms of um like third party websites that maybe are sort of like more extractive, third
Mhm,
parties in general that kind of extracting value out of
mhm,
it. And so how much of it can we take and hold of our own? Some of the things that we're sort of like thinking about and doing and sort of like experimenting with the community is we have a monthly free concert in the park.
right.
Super, super, super long running. It's gone from 30 people to 300 people. We had to move venues. It's been fantastic. Um, but a lot of those pictures and a lot of the media from that exists on social media, and so we're trying to move that away to our own sort of like site, our little garden that we're calling it right now, where we're just
Mhm.
planting little seeds and seeing how it grows. But it's been interesting to like our approach has been very one-on-one, where we go down to sit with someone at their picnic blanket and say, "Hey, I noticed you're taking pictures. We're doing this thing, and we want it to live on forever. We want it to live on, you know, beyond your generation, to see for other generations to see that there was peace and harmony and love and joy in the world."
Yeah. Oh, man, hopefully
Um,
people don't need reminders that there was at one point, and then hopefully there
Oh,
still
yeah, no, no, no. It's just
is.
like, when you look at the nostalgic pictures, well, I look at
Uh,
nostalgic pictures of like get-togethers in the '70s and stuff, and I'm like, man,
oh,
I wish
yeah.
I was there.
Yeah,
So
true.
I kind of was like, don't you want that sort of like same sort of like soldats nostalgia type of feeling, um,
Mhm.
like around the things that you do. Like when you get a little bit older, maybe you'll have grandkids one day, and you'll want to show them like, look, grandma was cool and hot.
Yeah, yeah. Indeed. Um, yeah, and that feels like such a healthier, that it just feels like a healthy approach, and it's weird how,
Mhm,
how it feels counterintuitive these days because we're all inclined to use, the 3 or 4 tools that basically own the world.
Yeah, they've really taken away like, I do a lot of internet culture research as like a, you know, part of my revolutionary primer for the next internet
Hmm,
iteration.
hmm, hmm,
But I really feel like they've taken away so much that people have forgotten. You can just make your own website, remember? You could just do that.
totally.
You don't even need any permission. You could just do it.
You can just direct people to that instead of,
Yeah,
to your
exactly.
Instagram profile. I feel like there's I also do this research. I have like a weekly newsletter that I'm, pretty much constantly writing about this stuff. And uh that I mean there does feel like there's sort of a reemerging awareness of like, oh yeah, I can own my own shit. I don't have to be
Mhm,
exploited, by Instagram or TikTok and have them, like, the contours of their platform dictate how I can show up and how I can present my own self to my people, to my community.
and I
So,
think AI actually helps people write code a lot faster. It's helped me a
yeah,
lot. So I feel like once people figure out how to make websites with AI, it'll be like easier than when we were like hacking HTML code during the MySpace years.
true, true. I never got very good at that. Um,
Yeah.
cool. So at this point, I'd love to transition a little bit more to, who you're listening to and talk about, some more artists and things like that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Okay.
well, actually, first, I have no, never mind. We already discussed this. I was gonna ask you how you discover music, but we talked about radio. Um,
Radio's a big one. Radio's a huge one. I think like if you have a DJ you trust, like, that's
Mhm.
worth so much more than, um, than any algorithm.
Totally, agreed. Well, actually, I would love, for the sake of adding that context to this conversation, would love to hear about, who some of the DJs are that you trust.
Okay, let me think about this. So, like, obviously, there's a lot of anyone who's on the Leaving Records label. Like, just gonna tell you, they have good taste in everything, more or less. It's true, but I think like most of the dubplab DJs, I mean, everyone from like old school people like Jose or Mama Bear, like they always bring the heat. Mona Lisa, like these are all people that I've been listening to forever. There's like weird people like Joni Mitchell, my friend Mitch Brown, he does like a ton of stuff. He's incredible. I think like if you're lucky enough to see Theo Parrish or have a Theo Parrish
Mm,
moment in your life, like take advantage because he's one of my favorites of all time.
mm.
Um, More Mother is one of my favorite DJs as well. Like one of my favorite music makers, one of my favorite poets. Like
Yeah,
I
more
saw a
Mother's
piece.
Day.
Yeah, More Mother is like really, really changed a lot about how I thought about things.
Mm.
And then there's like a ton of like actually British DJs I think I've been introduced to through NTS, like Finn and Paul Camo, like LDLDN, like ton of people like that. There's other LA local people like Bianca Alexis. Um, yeah, there's just like a ton of people. There's a ton of DJs. I could just list DJs actually,
That'd be
which
amazing. We
is
should have another half-hour conversation at some point where that's all we do.
honestly, but it's like people who love radio, like they don't want to go back to Spotify. They don't want to go to like all these other things. I think because you don't know what's coming. Like I feel like when I was on Spotify, maybe because I just collect so many records and because I have such wild taste that I'm like, this is boring. I'm not getting anything from this algorithm. And
Yeah,
like, so for me, I feel like it wasn't like super useful. Every now and again, it would like throw something, and I'd be like, "Ah, cool." And I was like, "But you know what? It's I'd rather just listen to some of these other DJs and listen to some of the stuff that they're putting out." And then like a lot of the times, like they're playing unreleased tracks from their friends too, so you'll never even get to have those things.
that's true. That's true. I should embrace that a bit more. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't use Spotify as a discovery tool.
Mhm.
Um, but I find it useful for going back and listening to the things that I have discovered elsewhere. But it's true. There are going to be some things that you can't find, and I have a bit, of a, sort of collector's mentality that after I hear something I love, I have to go find it and I have to know where it's going to be so I can always reference it. But maybe I should, no, I should.
I have
I don't
lost
have to
so
hold on
many
so hard.
songs in the club where I'm like, "I don't know if
Yeah,
I'll ever hear this song again, but I am
yeah,
enjoying it for the
yeah.
moment."
I've just transcended.
Yeah, especially because, like, a lot of those club mixes, like, those are people just making mixes on the fly, like, I'll never hear that again.
Yeah, which is beautiful. Which is beautiful. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, I would say, like, for in terms of, like, what I'm listening to right now, I don't think I have any, like, names off the top of my head, but just been really listening to, like, Rajasthani pop, so this
oh
pop
yeah.
music out of northern India. It is, like, some wild stuff. It's, like, kind of abrasive, but, like, in a way that I'm down with.
Well, cool.
It's just
Well, that's actually, yeah, I'd already totally forgotten about this music and exploring this. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you of like three artists of note that you've heard for the first time in the past year ish. So perhaps you could talk about three of the artists that you've been
lem
exploring, that you heard,
okay.
in India.
Well, I couldn't actually pinpoint one. Here's the interesting thing is, like, there isn't just one artist, I would say, that struck out to me in Rajasthan. It's just, like, the whole genre of the state stuck out to me because it was so different from all the other Indian music I've heard before. Because when you think of Indian music, you think of either ragas, traditional music, or like the Bollywood type of music.
Hmm.
And this pop music is like None of that. It's, like, auto-tuned within an inch of its life. It's, like, loud, it's pumping, it's 4 to the floor, like, sometimes they have, like, mix in, like, sounds of, like, ambulances and things like that. There's lots of whistling going on. Like,
Wow.
it's wild in a way that I'm like, "Wow, this is super abrasive to the ears." I can't stop listening to it. I really like it. I highly recommend more people to go find some Rajasthani like musicians, pop musicians specifically, especially if they're coming out with stuff right now. It's kind of you can kind of find it on TikTok a little bit more. I would say like that's where I've had more luck
Do you,
cuz I don't
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, cuz I don't think I could find too much of the stuff like not even
Elsewhere.
on YouTube. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, do you know any, of the artist names? Is there like,
Uh
is there a reference point that
my screen time, I was trying to look it up, but my screen time has locked me out
max?
of my app. So I'll have to like follow up with some of those artist names because like I was literally trying to do it and my phone was like,
You can't
"I'm
look at me right now.
sorry. I'm really sorry, right? But you did this to yourself."
Uh,
But I think other than that, like 2023, I feel like I got really into that and then like I just did a lot of traveling, so I think, like, I hit, like, 3 different types of genres. I hit, like, Rajasthani pop music. I hit, like, more revolutionary sort of, like, female punk
hmm,
startups in Mexico that are angry about lots of things.
cool.
And then, I would say the other thing is, like, I went to Japan earlier this year as well and spent some time there, and I just really dove into a lot of the, like, weird '80s avant pop stuff that I
Hmm,
didn't necessarily have like, I knew it existed, and I knew that, like and we know the, like, typical Japanese pop that came out of the '80s, but this avant pop stuff was actually something that I discovered in a record store called Revelation Time, which I would say if anyone who has any sort of, like, needs or wants in sort of like a deeper, darker version of most Japanese genres, like that's a
hmm,
great place to go. They had a lot of like weird, cool psychedelic stuff I had never heard of before, and some
cool,
really great, like cool, like dance tracks that were sort of um, like more by like lesser known people and sort of like B-sides and weird other stuff. So yeah, if you're into dance music, psychedelic music, and weird '80s synth music, I would recommend Revelation Time in Osaka, Japan.
cool. I wish we had had this conversation a few months ago because I just went to Japan in August. Would have
Oh,
definitely
uh,
would have
it's
definitely gone.
wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was incredible even without going to
the
Japan.
record collecting in Japan is outrageous.
Next
It's
level.
so good. I found so much stuff. I had to bring a suitcase home, like another suitcase home. It was like, yeah.
Yeah, I brought, like, 20 records back as well and also had to get another bag.
Yeah, I just like there's like Japan lives up to its hype. It was my first time going to Japan and I spent 3
Same.
months there and I was
3
just like,
months, wow.
wow. Yeah, I spent 3 months there. It was so cool and it was also very cold. I went during the winter.
Uh, it is an incredible place though, like, the entire time I was there, I was just thinking, "I want to spend a lot more time here." It was really cool. Okay, so
I
who
agree.
who who are if you could list three artists in total across those 3 genres that you just mentioned.
Oh, I don't wanna do it across those 3 genres, but I'll tell you
It doesn't
maybe,
have to
like
be, it doesn't have to be
okay,
that.
okay, okay, just,
Yeah.
like, 3 artists that I've been really into. I would say, like, um, Trey Jenkins, Ask Trey Jenkins, he has been someone on my radar for a long, long time. I think he's a really smart beat producer, but he's also just released an ambient, um, record with Leaving Records, but, like, he's sort of, like, hops around record labels. He's someone I've paid attention to for a long time because he can make any type of genre of music, and I really enjoy and appreciate that.
Hmm,
Where like for the past couple of years, have been very dance heavy and very like electronically sort of like yeah, like IDM kind of music, stuff like that. I hate to call it that even, but like
I know, it's a weird name. It's,
I know, but you know
but
what I'm trying to
I know what
say.
you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, but where, like, he did this, like, pivot into ambient, and I was just like, "Okay, like, who are you? You're doing everything." So he's one artist that I'm, like, I really, really respect. Um, I know I mentioned Sam Gendel before, but he's also someone that I've, like, definitely been listening to a lot of. Um, the Blue Blue album from last year, like, absolutely spellbound me in a way that not a lot of records take me for that ride.
Hmm,
It's just like there's something about it that's so haunting that I had to keep listening over and over and over and over again. Um, yeah, I really, really, really heavily have been moved by the music of Sam Gendel, and he's a really
cool.
wonderful person as well. So I'm always happy
That
to report
helps.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then finally, the last person that I would say like is someone to watch or someone that I've been like carefully like paying attention to and seeing like how they've evolved is Kolobo. When he first came out, he does like usually like these big Euro modular synth sort of setups, and it was very like dance heavy. And then he released Sahil, uh, his second album. I can't remember the full name of it, but it was more like if modular synth was like if Wendy Carlos if Carlos yeah Wendy Carlos had done like something in the modern age. It was like something like that. Some of these
Cool.
tracks, there was just like so beautiful electronic, classical pieces, but also like again more on the ambient side. So it was really, really, really been interesting to watch a lot of these people go from like heavier dance backgrounds to like mellowing out.
Hmm.
Like, maybe that's, like, a trend of the kind of music that I'm listening to in my later years, but actually, that's actually as I said that, I was like, "That's not really true." Like, I was like, "Girl, you're at the footwork ciphers. You're like you're not stopping anytime soon. 140 BPM is not the end." Like
Yeah, but if you're hanging out in 140 BPM, you need something, to kind of counter
Yeah,
that on
that's
the other
what I
side.
think that's maybe why I need that stuff, like, for my pleasure stuff at home when I'm, like, just hanging
Mhm.
out by myself. I'm like, "Okay, I need a little bit of semblance of some R&R in my diet because I'm 4 to the floor a lot of the times."
Amazing. Um, okay, cool. So I already asked you if you could remember your first album you purchased. Do you remember the most recent, or do you know the most recent album that you purchased?
Hey, let me think. I feel like I did get something in the mail. Maybe I could check my Bandcamp because I feel like I buy a lot of music. I don't
Mhm.
do a lot of, uh, let's see. Um, the last records I actually bought music from Saharan cell phones. That was my last purchase on Bandcamp.
Cool.
So there's that, and then also a solidarity with Libya Habibi Funk sort of release. So those are the last two that I've recently purchased. I'm
Amazing.
obviously a fan of like weird music you can't get anywhere else. Music on TikTok, music on phones, like
Totally. Yeah, that's the mark of a true crate digger,
yeah, it's
Gotta find the
true.
weird stuff.
The weird stuff is where it's at.
Totally. Um, okay, what's the most underappreciated album from an artist you love?
Mm. I think McVie's Perfect album is as it's called, Perfect album. But I think not a lot of people, unless they're like huge Fleetwood Mac fans, have heard this.
I don't think I've heard it. I
I
will listen to it.
you should go listen to the Perfect album by Christy McVie, formerly of Fleetwood Mac. I think she's also recently passed away, so RIP, but her
Mother,
music lives
yeah.
on. It's one of those albums that I'm like, "Why haven't more people listened to this?" Every
Yeah.
time I play it, every
Literally
time
the
I, like,
perfect album.
go out yeah, it's start to finish, like, I'm inspiring myself to listen to it again today. Like
I I will join you. I will listen to it after this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would say, like, it's just, like, got a great groove, really amazing songwriting. Her voice is incredible. It's a perfect album.
The perfect album. Uh, cool. Most underappreciated artists from your top mu music decade.
Mm, underappreciated music artist. Let me think about that. I think I think most musicians are underappreciated, to be honest. Like, I think that they give attention to the wrong people quite often.
Yeah.
For me to pick out one person in particular that hasn't had their shine enough, I mean, I think people like really smart people like I keep pointing to LA people, but it's because I know maybe because I know the intimacies of what they do. But like Sudan Archives is
Mm,
like such a powerhouse and does like is such an amazing performer and also is such an amazing songwriter and a violinist on top of all of that. I just like I've seen them blow up this year a bit, but like still wondering when their time is gonna come,
mm,
given that like they have so much talent and so many others don't have nearly as much talent, and
yeah,
it just goes to prove that it's not about the talent when
indeed.
we go to the industry these days. Yeah.
Yeah. It's because we lean too much on those tools, Instagram, TikTok. It
Mhm.
becomes, how consistent of a poster, like how good you are building
And
an
artists are
aesthetic.
not great at that.
Yeah.
Artists aren't really great at that. Some of them
I
are.
know. It's
Some of
yeah,
them
I mean,
are.
it's a terrible true, but not always the best ones. I mean, it's not always aligned with the
Yeah.
talent, so we need to have something, a tool that is more aligned, that is able to capture the talent and let people, let artists just, like, make music. I mean, it's cliche almost at this point. It's like, let's give artists more time so they can actually make music, but it's also continues to be true.
That's what I want for the future. That's what my dream is, and that's what I wanna help figure out how to make happen.
Yeah. Same. Um, you have heard that, everybody. It is our intent. Um, okay, this is my last question for you. It's the big
Okay.
one. You are going to a desert island, and you get to bring 3 records with you. What are they?
Oh my god, okay. People always ask this question. I think one of them's
Hmm,
gonna be Georges Benjour, Africa, Brazil.
nice.
One of my favorites, absolute, like, banger.
Great record.
Um, I'll probably bring okay, I'll probably bring, like oh my god. You have it and then you're like, "Boy, would you bring that one?" I'd probably bring, like, maybe I'd probably wanna bring Vespertine by Bjork, something a little
Cool.
bit more, like, quiet and cool and introverted,
Totally. Brooding.
and
Yeah.
yeah, some brooding music, something brooding. So I've got something brooding, I've got something pumping.
Mhm.
Um, I'd probably need some, relaxation, so maybe some Malcolm Cecil. There's that one album that I can't really remember, but he's, like, one of the first, to release ambient music. I can think of I have really good photographic memory, so I can think of the record, what it looks like,
I
but
can
Malcolm Cecil is the name of the, artist, his first album.
okay, his
It's
first
just
album.
but
Let me see if
yeah, so let me see if I could find it actually.
I can look it up as well. Could it be Radiance?
Yes, that's it. That's the
Radiance.
one.
Okay, cool. Uh,
That would be so it'd be Radiance, it'd be Bjork's Vespertine, and if I could bring the B-sides too, that'd be great too, because they were great.
sure,
Um,
we'll allow it.
and Georges Benjour, Africa, Brazil.
Nice.
Life-changing album for me.
Yeah, I listen to a ton of Georgie Bang, and he's just all his music's incredible. I mean, there's a couple,
Mm.
like, I think actually his what's the name of his first album? I'm not forgetting. Maybe self-titled, actually, but, That record I listen to, like, probably once a week. It's just
Oh my god, yeah, I'm very big into it too. Like, I listen to it all the time where even in India, I was like, "Oh, you haven't heard the song Taj Mahal on
yeah. Taj
Africa,
Mahal.
Brazil?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Um, cool. Well, this has been amazing, Jack. Thank you so much for being here and for chatting. I've really enjoyed it. For people who are listening who want to go get involved with the work that you're doing or be aware of the work that you're doing, where can people check out your stuff?
Yes, I would say, like, if they're interested in any of the IRL or record label stuff with Leaving Records, check out Leaving Records either on Instagram, or Twitter. That's LEAVING, like I'm leaving records. Or you can check me out on Twitter, JACQVACA, Jack Vaca. I post about things that have to do with emerging technology and being an indigenous woman and music and dance and, just my feelings and thoughts on those things.
All the good things.
Yeah.
Mm. Cool. And now that you've been through the ringer, so to speak, who else comes to mind? What other music heads, should we have on the series?
Maybe my pal Maylee Todd would be someone cool. She's a musician out here in LA that is super cool and weird. Also, Olive Kimono, she's also a musician and DJ. She'd be out here. She's another cool musician, curator, collector. Like, she and I have both said, I think that the fun thing about Olive is that she and I have both said that we could probably write a song a day if we really had to.
What a thing to connect you. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Always the
Yeah,
music's always on.
it's always turned on. Yeah, cool. Amazing. Well, I really appreciate it, Jack. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for the work that you do and for all of the music that you have been bringing into the world since you were born with a heartbeat.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been so much fun. Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.